When I first started, I thought all about how can we make sure that we're optimizing things better for companies. Now that I've gotten into this and we actually have employees, I'm starting to realize, oh, the agency model is broken for employees too. How do we fix that? And if we can fix that, then we don't have, let's say, employee churn or things along those lines as much, and we continue to develop our team, and our team gets better and smarter over time as well. It's just going to continue to compound on that side as well.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
You ever thought about the employee first concept? Well, we've done a lot of interviews on this show talking about why that's necessary. Today, we talk about the employee first mindset with a leader, the CEO and founder of Elumynt. There's a special spelling there. I'm not going to try to spell it here, but William and I talk about why employees are such an incredible element to scaling a company fast. And what are the really most important things? Is it the benefits that you offer them, medical and PTO and all the other things that you could do? Or is it making them feel heard and appreciated? Is it truly the leadership style and the chances for opportunity for growth? Well, it's all of those things. We look at that in detail here. Elumynt is a fast growth company. They're on the agency world. They really focus on e-commerce companies. And what's really interesting about what they do is they focus on EBITDA. They understand how to drive value, and that's how they've scaled their business. But they also focus on how to grow the team around them. So check out William's interview about how they create the employee first mindset and why that's such an important part of leadership. Now, before we get in the interview, I just wanted to mention to you, we're really excited about what we're doing in 2023. We're coming with some new changes and some new ways of serving and really helping you grow your business. Now, what does that mean? It means that we're going to talk about that here on the podcast. Hopefully you want to grow as a leader. You want to expand. You want to get a little bit more grounded and maybe even more confident. Trust yourself, be more decisive, and grow your team because they all need leadership. Or maybe you're thinking about how do we support our managers and help them grow and turn them into leaders, help them expand their capacity to lead and develop others. Either way, we've got you covered. If there's anything I can do to help you, make sure you check out genehammett.com. You can schedule a call with me. Let's just chat about your business. I've done this for a decade. My primary business is probably working with companies that are 10 to 20 million. So if you are above 4 million, I would love for you to reach out. Let's talk about your business and get to know each other. All you have to do is go to genehammett.com and schedule your call. Now, let's get into the interview with William. William, how are you?
Pretty good. How about you, Gene?
I am great. We're going to have a great conversation for the Growth Think Tank podcast. Tell us about Elumynt.
Sure. We're an advertising agency. We focus mostly on e-commerce stores. And a big thing that we do that's different is we actually optimize ads around EBITDA, so profit, which I think is very unique to the way that we go about doing things. It's actually helped us get 13 of our clients acquired. The largest sold for 800 million, so I just missed the unicorn. But it's a really fun way to approach growth.
Well, I'm sure that will come up inside here. I want to ask you a question about e-commerce. The 2020 e-commerce became a lot more robust and really took off for companies. I'm not sure where it is right now, but what do you see the trend for e-commerce companies? And because you're working across, a variety of clients, a variety of industries, I would imagine. What are the next trends?
Yeah, I consider right now, I'm not a financial advisor, so consult with a professional here. This is not professional advice, but I consider it to be on sale for Amazon and Shopify in a pretty significant way right now. So I double down on buying up that because I believe if you look at the overall share of percent that e-commerce takes of total retail sales, I think it's sitting right around 14.7%. If I were to ask you that, most people would say, oh, 50% or more or something. It's 14.7. It's not even 15% yet. And so when you think about how far we have yet for e-commerce to continue growing, and I got to make sure, am I going up and to the right now for you?
Yeah,
because it's up and to the left for me. Okay, so the clip here, you're moving along, and then 2020 happens. You go way up, And then 2021, 2022, you come back down, but now we're back on path. And if you could almost just draw a line as if you ignored that blip, and we're just continuing to go up. And it's going up pretty significantly still, quarter over quarter, year over year. So I think there's still a lot of room for e-commerce to continue to take a big chunk of the overall total retail sales.
I can see that happening. I know within our own family, I came home from a couple of days off and the whole table was filled with boxes. I mean, it is Christmas time, but it really is interesting that how much we do that is e-commerce and how comfortable that is, and one shop clicking and all those things. So I want to dive into what made your company grow fast. So you were on the Inc. list this past year, 1283, very impressive. You have a small company, 15, 16 employees? What do you think are the real contributing factors for your fast growth?
There's a couple of ways that we talk about this internally pretty often. The number one way that an agency like ours grows is through our own customers just growing themselves. So one of the nice things about our model is we do bill based on a percentage of ad spend. And you could do this based on a percentage of revenue. It doesn't really matter. The whole point is that as our customers grow, as they spend more money on advertising, we grow, right? Because we're billing on a percentage of whatever one of those numbers that you want to look at, which is going to be true for most agencies. So if we say, let's just decrease churn, what's the best way to decrease churn? We'll grow the business. Like that's what they want. And so if we do a really good job for the companies that we work with and they grow, we grow, even if we don't take on a single new client. But the other nice thing about this is because of the good work that we do, it makes it very easy for people to want to refer other businesses to us as well. And so we get a massive amount. I think pretty much all of our customer growth comes from referrals. And so I think that if you have those two things in place, it makes for a really nice, let's say, snowball effect, right? So you take a snowball, you push it down a hill, and it's just going to continue to accumulate. That's kind of the similar approach to what we're in right now. The other part of this, though, is going to be on the employee side. When I first started, I thought all about how can we make sure that we're optimizing things better for companies. Now that I've gotten into this and we actually have employees, I'm starting to realize, oh, the agency model is broken for employees too. How do we fix that? And if we could fix that, then we don't have, let's say, employee churn or things along those lines as much. And we continue to develop our team, and our team gets better and smarter over time as well. It's just going to continue to compound on that side as well.
I love the way you look at this. And maybe it's because I've had so many interviews with how important employees are. Today, we're really focused on the employee first mindset. I want to give you some background on my research. I'm one of the few people that have done hundreds and hundreds of interviews with founder CEOs of companies that are on the Inc. 5000. And I started asking these questions from the very beginning, really about, I call it the impossible question. So let me just throw it out there and I'll let you answer it.
Sure.
And kind of give you some more details. As a fast growth leader of a company, as a leader of a fast growth company, correct myself, what's more important, employees or customers?
Yeah. I love that you said you're gonna have me answer the impossible question. There isn't an answer to that that I feel like that I can come up with. You need both. If it was just down to the employees, we would be working 3 days a week, right? Myself included. I don't want to work any more than that necessarily, right? And so that's not going to be effective for customers. And so the business doesn't exist if you don't have customers, if you don't have something that customers are willing to pay for. But similarly, if you don't have, let's just not say, maybe not employee first mindset, but if you don't have a significant employee focused mindset as well, you won't get consistently good results by destroying your team. So if you destroy your team, that's gone as well. And so you can get really great results for a while, but that only lasts for so long. And I always thought about it the way that I think about working out. When I was younger, in my naivety, I thought that it would be a great idea to do a bunch of drop sets, and specifically 8 drop sets in a row. And so if you're not into working out, you might not know what that is, but let's just say you work out to failure, and then you drop the weight, you work out the failure, you drop the weight, you work out the failure. And I would do that 8 times in a row for my entire body. And so I did that one particular day, and my body had enough, and I went into an acute rhabdomyolysis, which is essentially where you've broken down so much muscle that it's more or less blocking your kidneys, and things don't work out very well for you. And I had to go to the doctor for that. So similarly, the rest time is important from a working out perspective. It's important from an employee perspective as well.
I get the drop set thing because I push myself too hard from time to time.
Sure.
I'm 52. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is kind of my hobby, and sometimes I overdo it.
Sure.
And I appreciate what you're saying on both. It's a trick question. There's one piece on there I think you have to think about. And this is just the way I think about this after asking hundreds of people. And it's as a leader of a fast growth company. So it's not saying the company doesn't put the customers first, but the leaders that
Sure.
put employees first, I find, have a better work environment, and those employees are able to put customers first because they want to keep that running. They want to keep that, job security, but they want to serve at a highest level. When they really are felt like they're understood, they will understand the customers and serve them at a higher level. So I don't know if I gave you the data behind it, but 93% of founders will say it's employees first. Does that
I like that. Well, okay, so I want to say it was Simon Sinek who said this, but don't quote me on who said this, but somebody smart like that. Something along the lines of who are the 7 people that you specifically are in your sphere, right? And so the 7 people that are my customers, let's say, are going to be my senior leadership team. That's it. For the most part, I don't need to know what's going on with 3 layers deep. I need to make sure that these 7 people that are right here, that I'm taking care of them to the absolute best of my ability, that their problems are being taken care of. And they should be making sure, so like my directors, they should be making sure that their managers are completely taken care of. My managers should be making sure that, each of their employees is perfectly taken care of. And then those employees, then their focus is entirely on the customer. So, I see where you're going with that, whereas as a leader, my focus is on the people who are maybe directly working with the customer.
Now, William just mentioned about the 7 people in your sphere. And I want to put some clarity around that. Your job as a leader is not to serve everyone equally. It's truly to create a clear understanding of who are the people in your sphere. Who are you there to serve? If your company has 100 employees, obviously you can't meet with all of them and give them all the attention, but you can really focus on the most important aspects of that. And it doesn't matter what size your team is and where you are in this, your job is to elevate others. I say this clearly because I want you to make sure that you're not just focused on getting the work done and measuring the KPIs and making sure all those things get checked off and are completed, but you are truly developing and elevating others around you. That's what it means by taking care of the people in your sphere. And I wanted to point that out because it's often forgot as we grow. The challenges, the chaos, the conflict that goes on in fast growth, I get it. I live it day in and day out. But you want to make sure you remember to take care of the people around you and really elevate them to that next level, whether that be their confidence or just their understanding and belief in themselves. All that is important as a leader. Back to William. Perfect. I'm glad that we are back on the same page. I want to unpack this employee first mindset. Our research, you sat down with someone on our team about how you guys got here and you talked about this. And I don't hear a lot of young leaders talk about that. What is an employee first mindset for you?
I would say similar to kind of what we were just talking about. It's that idea of making sure that the people that are on my team have what they need to be successful. And I think coming at a better definition of what success is, I think it's very easy for us to think of success in terms of money, right? Or something along those lines, but recognizing that as human beings, we actually, success is much more than just financial success. Success of time, success of doing the things that you find important and valuable that you enjoy doing. If I have people doing things that they absolutely hate, they're not going to last very long. They're not going to enjoy that, right? And so I think being able to identify what is success for individuals on our team, and how do I make sure that they're working on the things that are the most impactful to them. I think that's kind of where employee first comes in my mind.
Now, I got to ask, you're a fairly young company, small, but you've grown fast. How early did it start on this employee first mindset?
So there's a couple of things that we did from the very beginning. I would say that I initially built the company, mostly it was me and some contractors, and that's a longer story, but it started off more by accident. I had never worked at an agency. I didn't say, oh, I need to go shake up the agency world. It started because I was writing on Entrepreneur and Fast Company, and people said, hey, can you grow my business? And I like helping. So I was like, sure, why not? I know this person. And it started as me and just some contractors that I knew. Once we decided to officially start hiring employees, though, I want to say that now that I'm thinking about it, it probably started before I even had the company, because of being an employee at other places. I saw things that I would have liked done. And so I had gone without health insurance for a pretty long time, more than a decade, at being at just different startups before they actually had that. And so I said, okay, employee one, we have health insurance, 100%. And the biggest reason for why we did that with the very first employee is because you can't have a very effective workforce if they're not there, if they're in the hospital sick or whatever that is, or even let's just say if they're worried about that all the time. And that's a very easy thing to worry about. And oddly enough, this was in March 2020, really before COVID had its big heyday takeoff. And so we did this not necessarily even as a result of COVID, but even preemptively and not for that, just simply saying, I need to make sure that my team is taken care of and that they feel taken care of.
Well, I know that a lot of people get distracted by the smallest things, but healthcare is probably one of the biggest ones these days because it's just things have shifted. It's really hard to afford this inside of our economy, but you guys are taking care of these things. Unlimited PTO is another benefit that you're offering. I would bet there's much more to your leadership style than let's give them the best benefits that they can. How would you describe your leadership style?
Oh, that's a good question. Okay, there's a few things. I'm thinking of maybe three things that I would really want to call out. Again, not to quote Simon Sinek too often, but him and along with a lot of other people, I really appreciate a lot of what he says. But something along the lines of sometimes the best leaders are simply followers who are following the right leaders. And the thing that I thought about there was I can't be the best leader if I'm not following the right leader either. And so who do I need to look at following? Who am I emulating? And my business mentor is Dave Mortensen, who was the co-founder of Anytime Fitness, author of the book Love Work. And I meet with him pretty regularly, and he's been really good at teaching me a lot about the things that I need to know about the people side of the business. I was very good at knowing how to grow e-commerce companies. So it was something that I felt just in tune with. But leading a company was a very different thing. And so there was a whole new set of skills that I needed to learn. So I think step one was I need to make sure I'm following the right leaders and how they're doing this. I think step two is walk the walk, which was if I'm not going the right direction, I don't want anybody following me. So I need to make sure I'm walking the walk as well. And that's where it came down to, let's make sure that we are not just saying that we're taking care of our employees, but showing that we're taking care of our employees. And benefits are a big part of that. But kind of like we called out before, what else are we doing? What else matters to employees besides just benefits, besides just salary or bonuses or time off? And time off, unlimited PTO, it can get a bad rap sometimes. And we can probably unpack that later. But the thought behind unlimited PTO and then let's say unlimited bonuses are let's say control over your destiny. As human beings, we want to know that we have a little bit of control over what we do, whether we make money or not, whether we have time off or not. That's a big part, I think, of helping to see the full human side of our employees. And then the third part of that, I suppose, would be no fault. And I think this comes back from the hospital side of things. So before I actually did this, I was a nurse in a hospital actually years ago, in open heart unit, and they had a policy where, as you can imagine, sometimes people would amputate the wrong leg or something, and that's horrific, but it happens. It's very rare, but it does happen. And there was a system in place to where you could report things that you found or saw or errors without fault, because they know that, like, even in the hospital setting, people are still human. Mistakes are inevitable. But if you are afraid to call out those issues, nothing will ever be put in place to fix it. It will just get covered up. And so I that's something that's very important to me at our company now, is that we will make mistakes. In fact, on the new version of our website actually calls that out as one of the H2s, is we promise to make mistakes. And the idea behind it is if we're not making mistakes, then either one, we're not moving fast enough or doing unique enough things to test stuff out, or two, we're just too incompetent to even realize we made the mistake in the first place. And I think there's a lot of that out there in the field as well.
Now, William just said something really easy to misunderstand. We make mistakes. We will make mistakes. And it's on their website. I will tell you, I love this idea. I mentioned it inside the podcast, but I want to make sure that explain why I love it. Because if people are willing to call out the things that are wrong, then they have confidence in you, and they have a relationship with you that's special. But what happens mostly is people see things that are wrong and they ignore them, They think that someone else's responsibility, they'll take care of it themselves. And that's just not the case. I want you to make sure that you are creating the kind of psychological safety that allows people to call out mistakes. They won't be reprimanded for this, but they're willing to call out these things, and this will help you. Now, obviously, if someone's causing a lot of these mistakes, you need to pay attention to that, but you want to make sure that it's safe to call out the mistakes, just like William said. Back to the interview with William. I want to pause right there for a second. I think it's great that you guys have that on the website. I didn't see that. But fast growth companies are not afraid to let people, move and innovate. And if you try to not make mistakes, you're going to be too slow. You're going to constrict creativity. People are not going to feel the safety that they need to share their ideas. I love that concept. And I bet customers probably had a question about this, but the response behind it, I'm sure, is a great conversation as you explain why that's necessary. Marketing is such a hard thing. And I know you get this. It changes so quickly. And what used to work 6 weeks ago now might not be as good.
Right.
I do a lot of leadership coaching. And so it's pretty tried and true. I mean, there's some changes and some things that are shifting and transforming, but it's not changing like the way marketing is. So I have a lot of respect. When you look at getting the best out of people, like really getting them to feel empowered, letting them feel heard, is there anything that you have learned in your journey as a leader?
Oh, that's good. To make sure that they feel heard, I think one of the things we've been doing, we recently implemented EOS traction. Gino Wickman, I'm sure you're familiar with it, but for everybody else on the podcast as well. And I think one of the big things about that approach is helping to even just set up the L10 meetings, which are just this idea of a meeting where you're going to get to the issues at the bottom, and first just it's the IDS, right? So first just identify them. What are the issues? And let's just get a real good long running list, and we know that we have issues, and so just call them all out. We can't discuss them, we can't solve them if we don't know what they are. So I think that's been a big part of how we go about it. The other big part, though, I would say, for making sure that people feel heard is a lot of one-on-ones. We have a lot of one-on-ones with our team. And so our managers ideally should be having one-on-ones with everybody on their team at least once a month. There shouldn't be any questions about whether or not you're performing in the company. And there shouldn't be any questions on our side about what you need to be to be effective. And so having those one-on-ones where it's important to talk to each other, and we encourage talking about things that are completely outside of this. Even before that, let's say in the interview process, I really like to ask people about what are some of your personal goals. Next 5 years, what do you want to do, not business-wise? You just want to accomplish in your personal life, right? And I know one girl mentioned she wanted to be able to sew a dress. It's like, it's completely out of the scope of what we do here. But it's like, okay, well, remembering that everybody has things that are hopes and dreams that they want to do. How do we help them along those lines with doing things that they want to do, even outside of work? And so I think that's a big part of feeling heard.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that with us. I got a question about your values, and this will be one of our last questions, but how important are company core values to you, and how do you guys use them that make this work?
Yeah, we hadn't actually defined them until very recently. So it's maybe 6 months ago. Before that, it was me just writing down what I thought were the values of the company. And which is good, right? You have to have somewhere to start. But the EOS process, though, one of the things that I liked when we went through defining what those core values were, we had to try to think about every person on the team and think, what is it that I like about that person? What would I want to reward them for if they were going to do something? What would I want to say, hey, great job? If they weren't doing something, what would we want to call out and say, hey, I noticed you didn't do X, Y, Z, even if performance is great, right? What is it that we're trying to look at? And so what was really rewarding to me was when we finally went through this as a team, and we came back and we presented this to the whole rest of the team after our senior leadership team put this together. Everybody felt like they were like, yeah, these were written for me. These were written about me. And we narrowed it down to just 3. And the thought here is, it's like, what are the 3 things that are the most important, that if you don't have these 3 things, you're not going to be successful at this company. And instead of getting carried away on what would be aspirational goals. And I know that's one thing we talked about there, is sometimes there's these core values that are really just some CEO's aspirational ideal, but it's not a reality, and it's not a reflection of who the team is today.
I really appreciate that. I know it would be a long conversation, but really, what's the quick answer in one sentence? How did you narrow it down to three? Because I work with clients all the time on this, and this is the hardest part. They fall in love with certain things, they fight for it, and it's a really good conversation to have when you're fighting for the right values as an executive team. But how did you guys narrow it down to just three?
That's a really good question. I think through a lot of fighting. That was probably the longest conversation we had through the entire EOS process, was nailing down the core values. I think some of this came down to recognizing, wait a minute, how can we reduce that further? There's an engineering principle that my dad explained to me. He's an engineer, and I don't remember who originally said it, but it's the 5 whys, right? It's like, okay, well, I ran out of gas. Well, why did you run out of gas? Well, because the gas gauge is broken and said it was still full. Well, why is the gas gauge broken? Well, because I haven't done the, routine maintenance on it. Well, why didn't you do the routine maintenance? Well, I didn't have the money to do it. Okay, so now we got to the problem of why you ran out of gas. You didn't have the money to do the maintenance the whole way around, right? Or you started to get a little further. So I really like the reductionist approach to that, which is every time that we came up with something, we tried to see, it's like, well, what's the root of that? Why is that a part of value to us? Can we reduce that further? Can we reduce that further? What is the base core model? And the name of the company, Elumynt, as you can imagine, is based on the periodic table of elements. It's a poor spelling of it, like Google being the misspelling of the number Google. But so we're trying to really say, like, what is the building block? What is the component here that made that up? And when we found is we can actually start reducing a lot of these other things that might be core values. We can continue to reduce that down to these 3 core building blocks. And for the most part, then what they are is be innovative. You're not going to be successful at our company if you're not thinking of creative new ideas on how to approach things. The second one is basically show ownership, which is just that idea of, if you don't take ownership over your own work, or you don't take ownership over the results that you're getting, you're not likely going to be very successful here. And the final one is just this idea of be human, which is we really encourage that in all aspects in communications. Partly there's a song that I love about this by India Arie, where she talks about talk to her like you were talking to your granny. And that's kind of the mindset that we try to have. It's like, look, if you're having a conversation with your team or with a client, talk to them like you're talking to your grandparent in a nice way, which is like, you wouldn't use that language to them. You wouldn't be that angry or frustrated with them. Hopefully, I hope you wouldn't talk to your grandma that way. If you do, that you're also probably not the right person for our team. But it's just that idea of, how can we make sure that you recognize the humanity of that other person? They might be stressed about something completely different. So when they come to you with an email that's frustrated, actually might not even be frustrated about what they're frustrated there. It might have been something else that happened at their home or whatever. So approach it with kindness and grace and working through it from a human perspective.
I appreciate the detail. It was much more than one sentence.
Sorry, I'm
but I
terrible.
get the fact that it is a very important, passionate part of what makes you guys first. Thanks for talking about the employee first mindset, William. Really appreciate you being here.
Likewise. Thanks, Gene.
Wow, what a great interview. I love this employee first mindset and the concept. It really is something that aligns with a lot of the work that we've done here. I've thought about the book behind employee first. There's other books out there, so I'm probably not jumping to write that, but I really believe that you want to take care of your employees. You want to create safety. You want to create a feeling of appreciation and feeling of being heard. One of the best compliments anyone can give you is, I feel heard. Because if you're a leader and you are making people feel heard, you're truly being present, and you've got all those things aligned, then that person will remember that forever. They will remember how you made them feel, and that would carry them through some of the tough times and some of the things that they have to endure as they grow and expand and serve and do work on projects and all of that stuff. So, employee first mindset, very important piece of leadership. When you think of growth and you think of leadership, think of Growth Think Tank. As always, with courage. We'll see you next time.